In the previous video, we have studied about the animal tissues. As you have seen, there are 4 types of animal tissues. And in the previous video, we discussed about the first three, the epithelial tissue, the muscular tissue and the nervous tissue. In this video, we will concentrate on the 4th type of animal tissue, that is connective tissue. Connective tissue is very different from other animal tissues in few aspects that we will talk about. First is the cells are not connective tissue is different from other tissues, other animal tissues in this one very special way that in other animal tissue we have seen the cells were tightly packed. But in connective tissue, the cells are not tightly packed, they are loosely arranged with large intercellular spaces called matrix. The large intercellular spaces are called matrix. A very simple type of diagram if I draw. So if this is a part of connective tissue made up of many cells, the cells are far away from each other. You can understand too much distance between the cells, and in between there is vacant spaces or intercellular spaces that are called as matrix. In the matrix there are 2 types of fibers which provide the strength to them. These 2 fibers are thin yellow fibers, and the second one is the thick white fibers. This is also a specialty of connective tissue because these fibers you don't find in any other animal tissues. As far as the function is concerned, this connective tissue, they are the connective tissue acts as a packing tissue. Packing tissue in the sense it packs the internal organs. It keeps the organs fixed at their place. As the name suggests, it is connective tissue. It connects 2 parts of our body also. The second function, it connects the various parts of the body. These are the basic functions of connective tissue. So connective tissue different from any other animal tissue in these aspects, that it has loosely arranged cells with large intercellular spaces called matrix, and in the matrix there are 2 types of fibers. The connective tissue basically acts as a packing tissue present in between the gaps, you can say the body cavity in between the organs. The different organs of your body like heart, kidney, lungs, liver, intestine, they are fixed at their place. They don't move around here and there when your body moves. So how they are fixed? They are fixed by connective tissue. And they connect different parts of the body. We will see one by one the various types of connective tissues. The connective tissues, as discussed, are special animal tissues, and they have a large intercellular space in between the cells. And based on the matrix, the nature of matrix, the connective tissue is classified based on the nature of matrix into 3 categories. The first one is connective tissue proper, in which the matrix is soft and semi-solid. The second one is skeletal connective tissue, where the matrix is solid and hard. And the third type, the name itself is clear, fluid connective tissue, where the matrix is liquid in nature, which is also called as plasma. The liquid matrix is also known as plasma. So there are three types of connective tissue in our body. According to the nature of matrix, whether the matrix is semi-solid or soft, it is called connective tissue proper. If the matrix is solid and hard, it is called skeletal connective tissue. If the matrix is liquid in nature, then it is called as fluid connective tissue. Now, connective tissue proper that you have to study are of various types. The areolar tissue, the adipose tissue, the tendon, and the ligament. We will study about each one by one. When the matrix is solid and hard, it is called skeletal connective tissue. We have two types. It's called the bone and the cartilage. And the matrix is liquid in nature. The big example is blood. We have another fluid connective tissue in our body, that is lymph. So we have to study about these, especially the four types of connective tissue proper, two types of skeletal connective tissue, and two types of fluid connective tissue. We will see them one by one. The first type of connective tissue proper is areolar tissue. Areolar tissue is the basic connective tissue, which is actually called as the packing tissue. It is present in between the body cavity all around our organs. Areolar tissue is present, keeps them at their place, and it is present in the body cavity, so it is called as a packing tissue. It connects the skin with our muscles. Just below the skin we have muscular tissue, but the skin and muscular tissue are not detached, they are connected, and the connection is brought about by connective tissue called areolar tissue. It also helps in the repair of damaged tissues. That is very important function of areolar tissue. As we have talked about areolar tissue or basic connective tissue, we have seen there are cells here and there. Many different types of cells are there. There are four main type of cells, as they say in the areolar tissues. They are called as the macrophages. It is very simple to draw macrophage. The cell membrane has like this zigzag membrane. Then the second one, which is the largest, which has hair-like projections at both ends, that is called as fibroblast. Then a small cell called plasma cell, and the mast cells. So there are four types of cells very far away from each other, having a large intercellular space, that is called matrix, and inside the matrix you will find fibers running all along the tissue like this, thick fibers. You can draw it in any direction, no problem. These are the thick white fibers, and there are thin fibers also like this. These are the thin yellow fibers which covers the whole tissue. So that is the areolar tissue for you. In general present, the fibers give the strength to the areolar tissue to be able to keep every organ at their place. Now, when a person takes fatty diet, fat intake is more, or even carbohydrate intake is more, then the fat droplets gets deposited in the matrix of areolar tissue, or there are special cells in which they get deposited. When they get deposited in the areolar tissue, this makes the areolar tissue thick, and this transformed tissue is now called as a fatty tissue because it becomes thicker and fatty, or it is also called as adipose tissue. So the second type of connective tissue proper is adipose tissue, which is nothing but a transformation of areolar tissue. So definitely adipose tissue is mostly found just below your skin, above the muscles, where the areolar tissue was present. So these are the first two types of connective tissue proper. So areolar tissue, adipose tissue, the third one is tendon, and the fourth one is called ligament. As I already told you, the areolar tissue is the basic tissue, and that gets transformed actually into other forms. The tendon is a connective tissue which connects bones with muscles. In muscular tissue, we have discussed there are skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles means which are attached to the bones. How they are attached to the bones? They are attached by the help of a connective tissue called tendon. And this is a connective tissue, the ligament. It is a connective tissue which connects two bones at the joints. Now two bones, this piece of bone and this piece of bone, are connected at your joints. How are they connected? They are not fixed. They have been joined by another tissue. That tissue is connective tissue called ligament. What is the specialty of these two? This tissue tendon has large number of thick white fibers in the matrix. Normally areolar tissue has a certain number of white fibers and yellow fibers in the matrix, but when tendon develops, the number of white fibers increases. The number of white fibers increases so much that it almost covers all other parts of the body. So it is also called as white fibrous tissue. The ligament has a large number of the thin yellow fibers. The yellow fibers increase in number, and therefore it is also called as a yellow fibrous tissue. So those can be used as a difference, because many times the examiner, they ask you the difference between tendon and ligament. So you can write down these three differences. Both have semi-solid and soft matrix, so they are called as connective tissue proper. But there is a difference between them. One is used to connect bone with muscle, the other is used to connect two different bones. So these are the four types: areolar, adipose, tendon and ligament are called connective tissue proper because all the four have a semi-solid and soft matrix. So coming to the next type of connective tissue, it is called skeletal connective tissue. As already discussed, it is a connective tissue in which the matrix is solid and hard, and we know it is of two types. It is of two types. It is called either bone or cartilage. So two main types of skeletal connective tissue, the bones and the cartilage. What is the specialty? Why their matrix is hard? The first thing is the matrix has very less amount of water. In bones it is almost around 3%, but in cartilage it is almost around the water in matrix is around 8%. So you can clearly see the water is less, so it is much more harder than cartilage. We will be comparing both of them. Bones are extremely hard. Second thing is the matrix has huge deposition of calcium phosphate salts. तो कैल्शियम फॉस्फेट सॉल्ट ज्यादा होने के कारण ये मैट्रिक्स काफी हार्ड हो जाता है. देयर इज एवरेज डिपोजिशन ऑफ कैल्शियम phosphate salt in the matrix. Thirdly, in the matrix the cells actually synthesize a very hard protein, hard and non-flexible protein, which is called as osine. And in the matrix of cartilage, the cells synthesize a flexible protein, which is called as chondrine. So that makes the difference. Although both are hard, but the difference is the bone is much more harder than cartilage. Both have solid matrix, but the difference why bone is much harder than cartilage, that also will get here. The fourth point, that is most important point, is the cells are more closely arranged. As you see, the cells, you have studied in chemistry the solid, liquid and gases. When the molecules are more closely and tightly arranged, it makes the matter solid. When there is intermolecular space is more, then it becomes a liquid, and too much space between the molecules converts them into gases. So tightly packed cells also provide the rigidness or hardness. Here the cells are arranged here and there in groups of 2 to 3. That's all. I'll just explain. Suppose this is a piece of cartilage. So there is matrix everywhere. But at places, you will have such places here and there in which there will be a group of 2 cells or even 3 cells. Rest of the place is matrix. So not much compact arrangement of the cells, but here cells are more closely arranged. How they are arranged? They are arranged to form, rings. The cells are also very special. The cells have hair-like projections. Hair-like projections called canaliculi. If you see a piece of bone here, what actually happens is, in the matrix, the cell, suppose this is a cell with canaliculi, it attaches with next cell like this. Then another cell is attached. These are different cells. And ultimately what happens? You will see that these cells arrange to form rings. So arrangement of cells are more compact here. These cells of bones are called as osteocytes or osteoblasts. The cells having hair-like projections called canaliculi. But the cells which have a smooth cell membrane and which are a part of cartilage, these cells are called as chondriocytes. Chondrioblast, whatever it is. So like this you will find many rings. Another ring inside of the cells, then one ring here of the cells, then a ring here. So like this all over the matrix there are many rings of this is matrix where the rings are not present. This is your matrix, and otherwise all over the bone there are rings of cells. So more compact arrangement of the cells are found in the bones. Now as the matrix is harder in both the cases, here also, although it is bit soft, but it is so hard that it doesn't allow the movement of your blood vessels, the arteries, veins and you have studied neurons, nerve fibers, they don't pass through them. It just, there is absence of blood vessels and nerves. That is one very important point. Wherever cartilage is there, through the cartilage, there is never a flow of blood or nerves. No sensation there. Nerves gives you sensation. But as far as bones are concerned, it has the supply, has blood supply and nerves. Now in the hard matrix, how these blood vessels, arteries, veins move. So actually, the entire matrix is very hard. This is actually hard matrix. But at the center of every ring, here you see, this center of the ring, this center of the ring. There are many rings like that all over the bone. This central part of the ring is very soft. I will write it here so that you understand and relate it with the diagram. The central part of every ring is soft, and through it the blood vessels, that is arteries and veins and nerves, pass. This central soft part present at the center of every ring of cells inside the bone is called as Haversian canal. So these points you can see as a difference between bone and cartilage. Bone and cartilage both are skeletal connective tissues. Skeletal connective tissue means both have hard and solid matrix. But there is a difference. Difference is bone is much more harder, cartilage is bit softer. Then difference is because of the presence of water. Cartilage has more deposition of salts, more deposition in bone, less in cartilage. Then the presence of a special protein. The protein present in bones are much more harder, but the protein of cartilage is flexible. And third is the more compact arrangement of cells in the bones and less compact arrangement of bones in the cartilage. The last type of connective tissue, that is fluid connective tissue, we have already discussed. It is a type of connective tissue in which the matrix is liquid, also called as plasma, and so the cells which are present inside the matrix, because the matrix has become liquid, the cells actually start floating in the plasma. The cells actually float in the plasma. So if you see, the greatest example of this is the blood in our body. If you see the parts of blood, so blood has only two parts, it has got a plasma and the cells. The cells, as you all know, there are three types of cells. First is the red blood cell, the white blood cell, and the third one is called as platelets. Very simple. Red blood cells they contain hemoglobin, so they help in the transport of oxygen and CO2. You know that? WBC are called soldiers of our body because they fight against the microorganisms, kills them. And the platelets, whenever you get a cut and your body starts losing the blood, you can see at that point a hard cover is synthesized. That is called clot. And the process is called clotting of blood. That is done by platelets. So all three are important. Red blood cell helps in the transport of oxygen and CO2. WBC kills the microorganisms. Platelets help in the clotting of blood. As far as the plasma is concerned, the plasma contains all the three states of matter. It contains liquid, which is of course nothing but water. Around 70% of the plasma is water. That is why it is liquid in nature. Then we have gases. The gases are mostly oxygen and carbon dioxide present according to the parts of your body. And then third one is the solid. And in the solid, you have almost everything. There is carbohydrates, there are fatty acids, glycerol, there are vitamins, minerals, salts, amino acids, and nitrogenous wastes. So a lot of things are present in this. So the combination of all this is known as blood. Mostly it is red in color only because of the presence of huge amount of red blood cells in it. This blood is mostly responsible for the transport of food also. You might have studied that whatever food you digest is digested in your small intestine. From the small intestine, the blood collects and passes it to every part of your body. When you breathe in, oxygen goes to your lungs. So from the lungs, the blood collects the oxygen and passes to every cell. In every cell, CO2 is produced. The blood collects the CO2 from every cell and brings it back to lungs, from where you release it out. So blood is mostly responsible for the transport of substances. So you have seen what is blood. Blood is a fluid connective tissue, and the blood flows throughout our body. How it flows, that is what I talk about. It is in our body, it is called as a circulatory system. In circulatory system, the blood is pumped out by the heart and it reaches our tissues. The tissues are a group of cells. These are the group of cells present in our body. The blood comes out from the heart through tubes. The tubes branches and rebranches. All these tubes from heart to the tissues, which brings the blood from the heart to the tissue, are collectively called as arteries. And when the blood is collected from the tissues and given back to heart, all these tubes are together called as veins. So tubes which brings blood from heart to tissue is called artery, and tubes which collect blood from the tissues to the heart are called veins. Now, when the blood comes from heart to the tissues, the tube goes on branching. You can see the thick branch divides into thinner branch, again thinner branch, and these thinnest branches which are in touch with our tissues, these are called as capillaries. So, due to reduction in the diameter of the tubes, you can clearly see the tube that comes from heart goes on dividing and the diameter goes on decreasing. So, due to the decrease in the diameter, the volume decreases, and so the pressure increases. Plus, the wall of the tube also gets thinner. The tube generally is made up of thick wall at the beginning. The wall of the tube is thicker, and this thickness goes on decreasing as you reach the capillaries. So at the capillaries, the pressure is maximum and the wall of the tube at capillary is thin. So, due to excess pressure, the various components of blood, they penetrate and come out of the thin wall of capillaries. When they come out from the thin wall of capillaries, then these things are obtained by the cells or the tissues. That is how our cells and tissues get all these things. As we say that the blood helps in the transport of food, transport of oxygen, the blood does not come out of the tubes. Blood is inside the arteries, inside the capillaries, and inside the vein and goes back to heart. Blood never comes out. And the things are present inside the blood. So how they come out to the tissues? It is due to this process. When the pressure increases, they apply a pressure on the wall of the tubes, and through the wall of the tube they come out and the tissues get it. All these components that comes out of the blood, we'll just see. The blood has all the components we have talked just now: the water, the glucose, oxygen, amino acids, glycerol, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. All these things are present in the blood, and when they come out of the wall of capillaries, in the intercellular spaces. This is blood, and the liquid that comes out is called as lymph. Lymph is nothing but, what can you say? It is the lost part of blood. Where? At the capillaries. And from the lymph, all these required materials which the blood loses in the form of lymph, all these required materials are then taken up by the cells. So therefore lymph is also called as, I will write it here, the lymph is called as a middleman. Why middleman? Because all the necessary requirements are present in the blood and they are needed by the cells. But the blood and cell never come in touch. The cells are outside the tubes, the blood is inside the tube. Blood never comes out, cells never go in. So how the connection is brought between these two? It is brought by the third person called lymph, which acts as a middleman. Middleman means agent, the customer and the company. From the company the materials are brought and supplied to the customer. So that is how the lymph acts in between the blood and cells, making the connection between them. So it is also known as a middleman. So that's all about the connective tissues of our body.